Oh, hey everyone. Oh, Caesar, we're taking the Chapter 15 Civil War quiz. Are you ready? Ready. Let's do it. Two main causes of Civil War, Caesar: slavery or states' rights? Both. Yeah. I mean, the main issue was slavery. The North and South couldn't agree upon it. But really, Southern states, they felt they should have the right to make their own slavery laws. So some people argue the Civil War is about states' rights. Yeah, their right to have slavery. So really, both answers are correct. So 2 days after the attack on Fort Sumter in South Carolina, Lincoln officially declares it a rebellion. The Civil War is officially underway. The Confederate States of America. It's also known as the South. So when we're thinking which states, it was the southern states: Texas, Florida, the Carolina Brothers, Virginia, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, not Ohio and Michigan. Those states were in the Union, the North, the United States of America, the one with Abraham Lincoln as their president. Now, the border states. Huh? Border states, Caesar. These were states that didn't feel comfortable seceding, but they still wanted to allow slavery. Lincoln's not going to push the slavery issue with these states yet. That's a to be continued. So these states were kind of in the middle. Now, the Southern or Confederate Army didn't have a lot of advantages, just a few. One of them was, since it was the Union's job to bring the South back into the country, the South could really just sit back and play defense. They didn't have to be the aggressors. And similarly, the North was going to have to come down to the South to win this thing. So the South could stay put and have the home field advantage. The Southern generals were also just better. Robert E. Lee was the best of the bunch, and he was on the Confederate team. So those were the advantages for the South, or Confederacy. North had most of the advantages. The Union had more factories to manufacture items for the war. They had more railroad track to move troops and supplies, more farmland to feed the people and the troops, more population. They had more troops. All of these things, you would have thought North was going to win this thing easily. And not a bad plan, strategy. Their thoughts: let's cut off southern ports. Nothing can get in, nothing can get out. It also will prevent them from selling cotton and having any money. We're also going to gain control of the Mississippi River, cut off their transportation capabilities. The South strategy, again, we just need to play defense. Hopefully, they'll just get tired of fighting and quit. Maybe get some help from overseas in Europe, the British. Can you help us out? So, the fighting. Well, a soldier actually spent more time in camp than actually fighting, and life in camp was pretty gross. There's a lack of clean water, disease is running through. Chances are you could die just as likely, in camp than you could in battle. But the battles were extremely violent and dangerous. Don't be fooled. Weapons like cannons and rifles, they were more powerful. They could be fired from a longer range. It is a deadly war. Check out some of the weapons used in the Civil War. 2 years of fighting, nothing's really happening. Lincoln decides, I got to do something for the Union to shake things up. He decides, let's do this Emancipation Proclamation. Emancipate doesn't mean enslave, it means to free. And his plan: I'm going to free the slaves. Why does he do this? Why did it take him 2 years to do it? Well, he realized, it's part of the strategy. Any African American living in the country is now going to support the Union, and maybe he can get some soldiers fighting for him. Europe is not going to help the Confederate Army if the Confederate Army is fighting this war to save slavery. The British aren't going to support that or give them money. So it's kind of strategy on Lincoln's part. And so on January 1st, 1863, again, Emancipation Proclamation. It doesn't have that much of an effect, only because it only freed slaves that were living where Lincoln had control, and that was the North and the Union. There is no slavery there. The South, he had no power. He didn't have any authority. Jefferson Davis was the president of the Confederacy. So the Emancipation Proclamation freed only a few slaves in those border states. It was more of a symbolic gesture that changed the nature of the war to freedom and ending slavery in this country. Lincoln considered it his crowning achievement of his presidency. So again, it's not just about the Union. We're also going to end slavery if we win this thing. So African Americans, they helped out a lot in the Civil War. They fought as soldiers. They served in non-combat roles. They passed on information. Southern African Americans did their part as well. Not all Northerners supported a war to end slavery. They weren't all on board. Some thought, let them do their own thing. Is this really worth giving our lives for? And some Southerners didn't agree with seceding and starting their own country. So there was, not wasn't the most popular war on both sides that was going on. There was some dissension among each side. The draft was born during the Civil War. Both sides needed troops. They ran out of volunteers, so they did a system where they basically had a lottery. If your name got called, you had to serve. That is, unless you were rich. If you were rich, you could pay someone to fight for you. That's why the Civil War is sometimes called the poor man's fight. Women, you're thinking, how did women play a role in the Civil War? Well, they stepped up in a lot of roles. Men were off fighting and soldiers. Women took their place. Doctors, teachers. Women started doing things that they were more than capable of doing. It's just they had never gotten that opportunity before. So Union victories at Gettysburg, Vicksburg, the Union starts to win this thing. 1865, after 4 years of fighting, it finally ends. So what year did it start, Caesar? 1865 minus 4 years. 1861. That's right. Civil War was from 1861 to 1865. The North won the Civil War. The Union did. As a result, the Union was restored. There's no more Confederate States of America. They're back to being one country, the United States of America. And slavery was abolished. That's it. It's over with in this country. Again, Abraham Lincoln was the president who led the North and our country through the Civil War. One more time, the North won. Slavery was over. 1861 to 1865, that's when the war was. Now you're an expert on the Civil War. Whew. Caesar, we did it. You think any of those kids are still listening? No.